All right, we have Safety Jalen Catalon. Whenever you guys are ready.
Jalen, can you just tell us a little bit about the decision to come to Mizzou and what kind of sold Columbia on the spot for you?
For me, I think it was more than just opportunity. You know, if I was able to have one more year just to showcase what I could do in the collegiate level, why not? You know, I mean, the opinions on that, I mean, it's, you know, everybody's gonna have different things about that. But at the end of the day, it's all about doing what's best for you. And I think it was best for me to come back for one more year and just showcase to the people that I need to showcase to that I can still play ball and I can still make an impact now on the collegiate level, but still going into the next level when that time comes. But right now, we're focused on being the best I can be for the team and doing what I can here. I just love the brotherhood.
What were your goals for spring and what do you feel like you accomplished?
I think for me, it was just development and also getting to know my players more, you know, the team that I'm going to be playing with. You know, I think that's important because when you get to know your players and know not only who they are on the field, but who they are off the field, I think that makes a huge impact in the room, whether it's the safeties, corners, it doesn't matter who it is, receivers, offense. You know, I try to get to know everybody because at the end of the day, those can be my brothers and that's trying to be balanced on the field. So that was the most important thing, just getting to know the brotherhood in general.
What have the last 3 or so weeks look like since camp ended, and then what's the rest of the offseason until fall camp looks like for you?
For us right now, it's still just getting better. You know, Coach Drink emphasizing that just because the pads are off doesn't mean that we can't get better. We still can develop. So how do we get better? We do reps, you know, on the field when we get the opportunity to. You know, we do individual player-led workouts when we can, and then, you know, work out with Coach Russ and the strength staff to get stronger and work on the things that we need to going into the summer. So I think that's the main thing, is just keep developing while, you know, everybody's still going through spring ball physically. We can still get better, you know, mentally without the pads.
Jalen, a huge staple of your game, obviously, positional versatility. So how well does that mesh with the system set up here in place of Mizzou?
I think here is great because I think it allows me to be able to play at several positions, whether if I want to play in the boundary, if I can move to the field. So I know that's something that the coach will kind of go in depthly more as those talks go in. But right now, like I said, it's just for me, it's just figuring out how I fit well in the defense and how can I play my role the best I can play it for the team, you know, and for the defense, whether that's me being a boundary, whether that's me being a field, or whether that's me, hey, moving into the nickel spot wherever I can be, you know. I just want to be, you know, useful and be able to make an impact.
Jim, being as great place as you have been in college, what have you learned about what it takes to adapt to somewhere new?
Honestly, the best way to adapt somewhere new is to make plays. You know, I think when you make plays, you know, everybody starts noticing you. And then after that, you know, you kind of start meshing yourself well into where you fit at. So I think that's my focal point going in from now and going into the summer, going into the fall, going into the season is just, you know, finding ways to get better and show people and showcase that I can, you know, still do this thing to at a high level, you know. So that's just my goal every single day.
Does this defense feel pretty player-led? And if so, how do you see that every day?
Most definitely. You know, I say, you know, the coaches lay down a foundation, but the players have to, you know, execute it. You know, we can have that about the same, but at the end of the day, we don't live up to as a defense or we don't live up to as a team, you know, it all just for nothing. So I think we do a great job as a defense, as a players, just to make sure that we, you know, speak the same language as the coach is saying, you know, and make sure all the younger guys and also people that are coming in like me are following that. And I've definitely bought into it, and I definitely love the brotherhood.
Jalen, you started your college football tenure in the SEC, left for a couple of years. What does it mean to be back playing in this conference?
It means a lot for sure because, you know, when you start something, especially at a great conference like this, you know, you always want to come back when you can, you know, if you're able to and blessed to, and, you know, I was able to. So definitely want to come and play ball at one of the best conferences you can play at, you know. And I know this conference, like Big 12, Big 10, they have great ball too. Don't get it twisted. But in the, day, you know, we know SEC is always going to put out some great players, you know, phenomenal athletes. So at the end of the day, it's all about just showing that I can compete at this level and I can come back and still do what I can do at this level.
Coach talked about how great this defense is looking right now. I mean, for you, how long does it take or how fast is it that you kind of know it's like, okay, we've got some guys on this side of the ball who can make some real noise?
Oh, we have the talent to be as good as we want to be, but that's the question. How good do we want to be? You know, do we want to be average? Do we want to be good? Do we want to be great? So it's all about the message and the attitude that we bring every single day, whether we're on the field or whether we're in the meeting rooms or whether we're just working out in the weight room. It's all about our attitude and how we come in every single day and just laying that foundation down that we can be a good defense, but it's all about the details and how we come about it every single day.
After your stint at Texas, Jalen, you headed to UNLV. You reunited in a sense with Coach Odom. So What can you share about how his approach helped ignite more growth on your end?
Coach Odom was the first person to believe in me. Crazy that he was here actually when he offered me in high school, and to kind of swing back where I was him at Arkansas, and just to now go back and look back at us being a UNLV, that was something that I cherish. He definitely, kind of picked me back up when it felt like I was honestly looking to go elsewhere, and he honestly, kept me going, and, my family was there through it all. But I definitely credit him, for my college career, especially a good majority of it, for allowing me to show that he can believe in me still, show that I can do this. And, if I believe in you, you should believe in yourself too. And, he instilled that in me, and I took off and ran with it.
Jalen, you dished out some pretty hard hits throughout your career doing defense with a lot of other hard hitters. Is that something you want to ingrain into this defense's identity this year?
Most definitely, yes. Definitely, my whole philosophy is run and hit. That's kind of something that I engaged going into my career as a defensive player and on a defense in general. But I think this spring we showed that, even though we weren't going live, weren't doing like that source, we were definitely trying to implement that we can run to the ball, we can make plays, and we can be physical, So I think that's something that we want to implement more in the fall, and hopefully, going into the season, we can show that as well, But I have full confidence just seeing how guys are flying around in the spring and stuff, that won't be a problem for sure.
And then as sort of a side, you had a big six against Houston last year in the first game, and then your end zone celebration, you hit I think it was the Cam Chancellor.
Oh, yeah.
Was that inspired by him? Was that something?
That definitely was. I actually watched the little Legion of Boom. My old coach, Coach Carter, put us on a video, the Legion of Boom, and his mentality and kind of how he approached the game, just fearless, And I know I'm not as big as him, and I'm not like, our size, and I'm small, of course. But when it comes to, I like to keep that same mentality, fear none, End of the day, we all go in and, put our pants on the exact same way, and we do things, end of the day, just to fear none.
Coach Jalen just talked about, Coach just talked about how much you want to win and stuff like that. But I mean, what does third team All-American mean to you, considering some of the injury history and stuff like that? What does that mean? How does that kind of fuel you in your journey here?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, definitely people that named me, appreciate it. But at the same time, I believe you're not first, you're last, so I'm third, so I wasn't first. But at the end of the day, I mean, you can say individual accolades, but I came in this thing more for a team thing. I came here to want to win, want to play my role, and just in my college career on the highest note, and hopefully, want to be a champion, want to be a champion in conference, want to be a national champion. I feel like if you're not doing this to be that, then you're wasting your time. So I definitely want to come in and do the best I can to instill that into the team. Not saying that no one here doesn't have that same drive, and I see it every single day, but, just doing my part for the team.
Jalen, you're in the
Through the recruitment process a couple of different times now in your career, I'm curious from a player's perspective, with all the changes in sport, how it was maybe different this time around, what this recruitment process looked like for you.
Of course. Well, going in, my freshman year at Arkansas, before that, high school recruit, there wasn't NIL, there wasn't all of this, of course. So, the way recruitment, how those things came were different. But, now you look at it and yes, those things are going on. But I think at the end of the day, it's all about how you approach it. If you keep your values the same and you kind of outline to those coaches that this is what matters the most, then I think that recruiting pitch, kind of centers back to, how it should be or what it really is truthfully about, Don't get it twisted. I'm blessed, to have the NIL portion of it start coming for athletes like myself and everybody. But at the end of the day, it's all about the relationship, what can you be as a player here? Because at the end of the day, that's all good. But if you're not making an impact, you don't feel happy where you are, you don't feel like you fit where you need to be, then, I feel like at the end of the day, it's going to be all a waste, So that's why I'm blessed to find here. Not only, have I found just a brotherhood, but I found a place where I feel like I can excel at and, do everything I can to, put this team on top.
Jalen, here at Mizzou, you're joining a position group that could stand to benefit from a little more experience. Why is it now? Why do you feel as if now you are better equipped, or how are you better equipped to lead as opposed to maybe your previous stops? What have you gained in terms of knowledge there?
I say the bumps in the road. I think I've went through so much in my career and so much adversity that there's just so much I can not only just play on the field, but I can just give knowledge and mentally to my teammates, It's definitely been a journey for sure, but, I'm just glad that it's my last stop, to show, not just for myself, but just for my teammates too, and just for anybody that, just because you went through some bumps in the road doesn't mean you just stop, Because at the end of the day, if you don't believe in yourself and you tell yourself that you can't do something, then doesn't matter what anybody else does. You know, you won't make anything happen. So I'm just trying to, you know, instill that not only to my teammates, but hopefully to people that are looking at my story that, you know, don't give up, just keep going, and, you know, you'll find your place. So right now I'm just doing everything I can to find my place here.
Jalen, it seems like from what you're saying, everyone's kind of moving as one unit. The chemistry is starting to kind of form there. It's being good when everything is going like that at the end of spring, going into summertime and all that. Just how special is that? How can that provide the impetus for the successful season?
Sorry, it was a little. Can you say it one more time? I apologize. It was a little bit low. Can you speak a little bit? I'm so sorry.
And then, you seem to feel that the chemistry is being formed really well.
Yes, sir.
Within that defense. So knowing that, you know, how can that chemistry, you know, then turn into a successful season for you guys? How can that provide the impetus for success for you guys?
I think it starts off by setting a tone. You know, if you come in consistent every day, I think the group has no choice but to follow, because when you set that tone, everybody wants to follow and be great, you know? So when you kind of put that seed down and say, hey, this is what we're going to do to be great, you know, and you have the right guys following that path and everybody going about it, getting the extra work in, being attentive with the details in the weight room, making sure everybody is doing everything right outside the locker room, you know, making sure everybody is doing the little things. I think when you see that happening, I think that's when everybody just meshes well, and then it all just, you know, it's a domino effect. Everybody wants to do it, you know, because I think at this thing, you start looking at, you start realizing, you know, asking the real question is, who doesn't want to be great, you know? So I think when we start having the mentality of that team, saying, hey, we all want to be great, I think that's when everything will kind of flow well. And I see it well here too, you know? So like I said, I'm just trying to be part of domino effect and do the same thing.
Last question.
Your journey being full circle, you know, what do you remember about stepping back onto campus for the first time since being a high school recruit?
Shoot, that's a great question. It's definitely, you know, looking back on myself from that time and looking at myself now, it's just like, man, if I had known so much at that time how I do now, how great I'd be. But I don't take anything for granted, you know. I think those things that I had to go through when I first stepped on campus to now have made me who I am, you know, currently sitting up here today. So I'm just thankful for the journey. I'm thankful to look back from that point to now and say that I went through things that I went through, because it's led me here to be a Mizzou Tiger, and I'm proud to be that.
Thanks, Jalen.
Mm-hmm.